Good afternoon, everyone. I am JaVonni Brustow. This is the Media Mogul News Update, and I'm here today with Chicago activists Mercedes and Charles Pickett. Thank you both for coming on.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I love
Absolutely.
you.
So these are two people who have both done a significant amount of work in helping with the city of Chicago. As some of you all know, I've spent a significant amount of time over the last year or so in trying to make sure that I speak to people of different or some of the country's largest cities. Um, uh, for those who know me in Petersburg, Virginia, I follow our city government, try to advocate for policies that help. And when I have the chance, I try to reach out in other parts of the country and see if I can pick some other people's brains. So, whichever wants to start first, let me know how Earth's Resources began.
Yeah, so Earth's Remedies
I'm
started.
sorry.
We are a hub of resources, and that is one of our top services. We are a hub of developmental resources, and we connect the community to a free education, career readiness, financial literacy, conflict de-escalation, wellness, and business strategies. I founded Earth Remedies on Earth Day of 2016. And initially, it started as a tutoring platform for our youth in the community. And they go to a nearby cafe with an Earth Remedies representative
Oh,
to
nice.
get one-on-one assistance. And a lot of times the parents will connect with us. And by the end of that first year, the child is really looking forward to coming back and meeting with us. And over time, we evolved our platform to incorporate the families. When you work with the youth, you often hear their needs, especially right before back to
Right.
school and right around the holiday season. So our biggest events are in regards to getting the youth fresh and ready to school, as well as allowing them to see that there's resources and love during the holiday season. And initially, we had small pop-up events dedicated to families and their needs. And once the pandemic occurred, we had to take a step back, revisit how we connected with the families, and it allowed us to bring small businesses and other resource centers to the table to help strengthen uh, our network and help bridge that divide that we saw across the west side of Chicago.
Okay. And so this is the West Side. And so one thing that's interesting, we tend to hear about South Side a lot. Um, but I was just thinking while I was, going through your bio, I said it occurred to me I don't recall seeing any organizations that were based in the West Side. It's just not written about. Um, so do you mind telling me about about that side of the city and versus what the difference is, and say what we're accustomed to hearing about, and possibly why we don't ever hear about that side.
Yeah, I can talk about it for a little bit and I'll pass it to Mercedes. But pretty much from my knowledge, the West Side, with it being very close to downtown and up north, it's deemed to have more resources than the South Side. Also, the South Side is almost two-thirds of the city of Chicago, and the West Side of Chicago is probably about a fifth, even then. So it's a very small section of Chicago with probably about 4 to 5 neighborhoods, but the level of disinvestment and disenfranchisement is still there
Yeah, it's still there.
within those city limits. But when you look at the south side of Chicago and how vast it is, imagine the disinvestments in the west side, but times
Yes,
that by three in terms of scale.
yes.
And I definitely agree. Two things that I had to write down was grocery stores. They will look at the grocery stores in the West Loop, in Oak Park, or in a neighborhood surrounding the West Side, and
Hmm.
say, there's no fresh food desert. They have access. They may have to travel outside of their neighborhood, but they have access.
Right.
And the second one is there's a strategic starvation. Having the west side of Chicago be broken up, whether it's Garfield from west to east or Humboldt Park from west to east, it allows for funding to be funneled to a particular neighborhood, understanding that the price of living is going to go up when you develop in one neighborhood and less
Hmm.
in another. It allows for families to be displaced. It allows for the West Side residents who've been there for generations to have to look for other homes to purchase outside of their neighborhood. And the West Side of Chicago is a gold mine, and the strategic starvation is allowing for the property to be sold at a ridiculous amount, but it's still too much, still too high for the residents. And our goal is to bring the residents to the table with those developers and to try to find a way for the residents to not
to make it work.
Displaced. You know, you can invest in the infrastructure, but if you're not investing in the residents and the youth, then you might as well be pushing them out actively.
No, that's true. And so I know that that was one of the list of resources that you had as far as helping with home buying. Helping members of the community with buying homes. That was the reason why I messed up and said resources at first. I was literally going through this list of resources and, doing my homework earlier. Sorry. But one thing about that is that it reminds me of the city's history. I know that dating back to the 50s and 60s, I believe that was when the home contracts were, whereby people were buying their homes, and you don't get it until that last payment is made, and if you miss one out of those 30 years or so, then there goes the house. And that expression about have to be twice as good for half as much rang true, literally, because people were paying twice as much for homes. And here we are some decades later, sort of going through, the same thing in these cities at least as far as, the strategic displacement goes. And so I was wondering how is gentrification in your side of town? Just what experiences have you had with, be it friends, neighbors, and how are you all working to address that?
For me, we both grew up on the west side of Chicago, Humboldt Park. We were in the middle of Humboldt and Garfield Park. My mother lived on that block 30 years prior to her buying the property that she purchased for us. Mm-hmm. I remember a few years ago, like 2 years ago, I went to my mom and I said, when was the last time you saw them work on the sewer line? Oof. In this neighborhood? And she was like, whew, girl. Like, yeah. Like, I know the water tastes different because, going to a different university, mm-hmm. your neighborhood school, you get to just taste the difference in water. And it really took me back that there has been a water crisis in Chicago. A lot of West Side youth have water lines connected to those contaminated water pipes without the filtration systems, and it takes for non-Black individuals, non-people of color, to step into our neighborhood for them to start building. And one could say that was coincidence. However, for me to go back to my mother and say I do not recall them fixing the plumbing, the piping system, it disrupted all of Chicago, Homan, for almost a year. And we were thankful for those developments, but we know that many of our residents will not be able to see those developments and benefit from that. Children are drinking water that's filled with lead. And even though it may not be as much as Flint, lead in the water to a certain degree.
Well, it has its effects.
The child's brain.
It can contribute to behavioral issues for children.
Yeah.
Right.
Mental illness and behavioral issues are already undiagnosed in our community. So when you look at historical hardships, generational barriers, it's like, how are you not, the city and on the federal level, how are you not addressing the Black community in a very strategic manner? In
a manner that is actually what you're asking for is to have elected officials in office who are going to be helping the residents that are there instead of the residents that they might want to be there. Right. And I also feel that we're sort of at a point in time in cities like yours, whereby just some of the tropes that I hear is that, people don't care. What about this? There's Chicago, there's this. What about that? Are these people showing concern? But in the trends of development, I would say over the years, the community's been sold a bill of goods about this is what we're doing here. Development plans take about 20 years, usually, the community ones. So by the time the whole neighborhood's changed, well, then now everyone's gone. And,
Right.
the children are able to look and see that they're able to see what's happening. And hopefully we can stop another generation of that happening again, because, folks went along with it because it seemed to look fine at the time. And this, the water infrastructure thing, we have this here. It's not, it's not an anomaly. This goes on, in so many parts of the country. And there's so many things that we focus on that are not a part of basic city services, for residents. Um, instead of some of the developments, I know that had mental health in the list of resources. I know that there's the hospital, that major hospital complex. Um, and they just recently closed a 50 or 60-year-old program that they had for blind and developmentally disabled people. And in turn, they're building a hotel, I think, next to it and some apartments. Just doesn't quite seem like the priority is right, you know.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the issues that we're seeing. For example, the city has a program called Invest Southwest, and a lot of the people from the West Side communities, they're also saying that they don't feel as if the community is actually involved. And with Earth Remedies, like I said, we had a community conversation not last month, in April, for our on Earth Day, our 6th year. So we went into our 6th year. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And we just want to make sure that we're empowering the community and involving them within this conversation and making sure that we're pushing forward and speaking on. You kind of notice the disinvestments within the different communities in regards to, like, for example, the small businesses, the lack of small businesses. When you drive through the West Side, through Austin, through Humboldt Park, through Garfield Park, you see less and less small businesses, and you see a lot of the buildings are in the same style they were back in the
Yes.
50s and 60s, and nothing has changed. But as you get closer to the West Loop, you see more white or non people of color businesses, and that the demographic definitely changes from there.
No, I can relate. I'm in a city where we're majority black. I think that we might be 85%. And I gave a tour of the city to an old boss of mine, and he said that he thought that it was a white city because being downtown, they're not only, most of the businesses are not black owned. You don't see too many black people around. Um, so for that, I understand. And you all just had, I think, from Mother's Day, I think it was, an elected official. I forgot who it was. There was
Yes.
a table, and I think that she happened to. I think that she either voted against or spoke against some type of business fees going up recently, um, which would be a good thing in the sense that we already have businesses or a lack of small businesses and minority businesses, and how is that going to be helping to charge more for the process?
Yeah, that was Representative Lakisha Collins for the Ninth Ward in
Mhm.
North Lawndale. She was recently sworn in this year. And to have worked with her prior to and to see the work that she's doing now is astounding. She's definitely been a voice for healthcare workers. Especially
Okay.
making sure they had rights, making sure that they had accessibility, even for the elders that they serviced. So to see her journey and to see that she's continuing to do the work, that is who we want to partner up with. A lot of times we have congressmen, aldermen doing the surface level work,
Yes.
coming by for photo ops. However, when you're asking for available lots to be redistributed to resource centers so they can utilize it. You get a lot of pushback. I know when Earth Remedies was looking for our vacant lot, we went to Walter Burnett and we asked about how can we create green gardens in our neighborhood and make it resources more accessible. We were
Mhm.
unable to receive that lot because he also controls the West Loop. And when he works with the Garfield Park and a part of the Humboldt Park corridors, his goal is to revitalize part of that west side to be as profitable as as the West Loop.
Hmm.
Having green gardens and resource centers pop up around the west side may strengthen the residents, but it's not within his 20-year plan to the redevelop the side. And I just don't understand how you cannot have both side by side, because when you develop the infrastructure and you invest in the residents, you're allowing those residents to buy property to increase the value of their neighborhoods,
Yes.
rather than pushing them out. And I know redlining is illegal, but it's very prevalent in Chicago. You can look at ethnicities by neighborhoods, and you can also map that out based on the train system. You know, it's been
Hmm.
since the 60s and the 80s, and it's very almost disgusting to see a lot of politicians working for residents who are not currently in their neighborhoods. And those residents are potential investors in these aldermen's and congressmen's eyes. So our goal
Yes.
is to shift the table and to bring
As
individuals
you should.
and hold them accountable. I know the university, UIC, they came to us and they was like, our internal space does not reflect our backyard when it comes to the staff, when it comes to the students. How can we change that? And
Okay.
we started creating programs where they're working with the youth, they're working with small businesses,
Nice.
not just 11th graders, right before they transition to their senior year, freshman year in high school. They're
Great
investing
time.
in the community. We had a pitch competition where their graduate students was giving live case study feedback to small businesses on the West
Oh,
Side,
wow.
rather than just opening up a book.
That's not normal or not common at all.
Definitely not common.
You
And
have adults and business owners who cannot give business feedback to the community.
And why have students give feedback to a stale concept when they can give it to a live business model that need it, especially
Yeah.
in the pandemic? And both parties walked away with marketing advice. We had two winners, one won second place and one won first, and they were able to work with Gone Again Travels. She's a Black elder in Austin. They were able to work on her platform, her website, and create marketing strategies that they can implement in real time. They can use it in their portfolio. And she was able to elevate her small business within the pandemic. And they also gave her strategies for when the pandemic subsides. And I thought the notes were profound. It was notes that Earth Remedies can take. We also
Hmm.
shared those notes to our other business network. And the first place winner, they won a free trip to Cancun.
Oh, wow.
Winner, they won a free trip to anywhere in the United States. And that was because we were able to pool resources, available resources. Travel agencies have package deals that they're ready to share to get the
Okay.
back circulating. And for us to have individuals that have skill sets, that may have time, some may have money, others may have knowledge to give. We pair them up with individuals who need the help. And if a person don't have anything to give, we bring them to the table to receive additional help. And that's how work gets done. Holding individuals accountable, especially larger infrastructures, and
Yes.
bringing the community members to those tables. So,
Right.
Earth Communities, we want to be that meeting ground to help elevate and uplift our community and hold larger infrastructures accountable to the work that they may or may not be doing in the nearby community.
Now, is that the, I think, a business consultant competition? I mean, that's what that was. I think I had a clip
Yes.
of that in there in the intro.
You did, you did. It was us downtown for the very first one. We had to, and we're working on developing that, and also implementing UIC classes, like the courses, because I'm a MBA student at UIC as well.
Okay.
So we're working on adding certain businesses that are on the west side of Chicago, and they work with the students for particular courses that the professor allows. And I think that's just empowering, because it's the same thing with consultation. A lot of people don't know what they don't know, and that's due to lack of consultation. Small
Yes.
businesses, particularly Black, don't get past the 1 to 5 year mark. They don't get past that, and due to COVID, 50% of small Black businesses went out of business. Within the west side of Chicago, we were able to fundraise $43,000, and we gave out 26 small business grants to keep them afloat. And
That's
those
amazing.
businesses are still existing to this day, which makes us feel really positive about just pulling together resources and making sure we stand up for ourselves.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing. That 1 to 5 year mark, that I understand. I have watched the businesses come and go. Back in sorry, my hometown of DC. But to go back to what you had said about the food desert. Um, I'm bringing this up just because I tend to have an argument about food deserts, where I know of um, a community advocate, I would say, who I think this was their part of their expertise in working in inner cities, where they've basically said that one can't force people in eating healthy. Sometimes I come across pieces where people feel that there may not be a market necessarily, for having healthy food in some of these communities. And I was just wondering how is it that you were able to identify this? Because even where I lived, I believe I was um, in a food desert, and I had received some of the same responses that well, so what if the grocery store might be a few miles away, and most people are taking public transportation in the area. They'll never make it to it because it will take forever, and it sort of constitutes having a food desert. So I was just wondering how you came about adding that to the
So
program.
I feel as if accessibility increases a person's options. When you think about the education system,
Hmm.
having green gardens a part of the curriculum allow the youth to understand what it takes to nourish not only that plant but themselves. Even if
Yes.
it's not a part of the educational system, the youth having access to free um, gardening so they can understand here's a seed, here's
Oh.
nutrition and water that it takes to grow. They see how it reflects within them what they need for themselves to grow and sustain themselves, to become more uh, healthy and understand what nutrition is and how they can increase
Is she
their.
helping with the growing process as well? Sorry.
Yes, we do. We
Oh,
actually work
nice.
with a few gardens across the west side of Chicago. One is called
Okay,
Love Blooms Here, and we really do want the youth
I
to
like that name.
have their hands in the soil, and help nurture what they will bring into their bodies, because it is. It's very symbolic, and one thing we understand is having a grocery store pop up on the west side of Chicago may not be the best option this year, because you first have to give the youth an understanding of what this food tastes like. They've spent their
Hmm.
entire life drinking processed drinks and eating processed foods, and having fresh food options may only go with grapes and apples, maybe a watermelon, but they
Hmm.
may not have the options to invest properly. Our goal, with bringing awareness to the lack of fresh produce in our neighborhood, is to allow pop up spots to occur.
Hmm.
We know in Austin there's a co op grocery store where farmers can contribute their produce, their items to a free space.
Did you
And
say? Sorry, did you say that existed already? The that farmers. Okay,
yes, yes,
very
yes.
good.
It allows for the community to become more acclimated to fresher produce. And
Okay.
when the community is asking for these resources, I believe that's when the space should be developed. A lot of times they anticipate the community will
Wanting
not,
something.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's, they're not familiar with those options.
Right.
And honestly,
Oh, I never thought about that as a strategy. That's a
Yeah.
development strategy that you can have these pop-up farmers markets, and then that will get them to want to desire an actual physical space. I never thought
and
about
even
that.
Oh,
Nice.
definitely.
and even allowing the kids to grow those produce that they're going to bring to their community.
Even
And
better.
it's a process. They have to learn it, and it's almost reconditioning the mind. We've been having almost 400 years of trauma instilled in us, and it takes time to recondition the soul. And it's like attending to the Black community is like understanding a baby who just had something traumatic happen to them. You
Hmm.
have to take time to understand all the factors that is contributing to the problem in order to solve that equation. And I feel as if many individuals look for the Black community to have all of the answers when they don't even have all of the resources to get there.
Right.
And there are some individuals who are making the moves and doing the work. And I don't think we should be discouraged that there's another person who's not doing the work. I mean, it's up to us to
It takes
create that.
teaching others.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. And then like to add to that conversation, I think some of the biggest things that we need to focus on as a community is empowering and focusing on that Black dollar. And in order to do that, like what Mercedes said, you have to teach. One thing I was reading an article, and it was stating that a lot of the free food resources within our communities that pop up, or the nonprofits that are supporting and giving out these free resources or discounted resources, could potentially devalue the sense of money in regards to families that are in need, because it doesn't really support, it's just giving without
Yeah.
actually giving resources. So if you flip it and try to figure out the factors that are causing these disparities between the different communities, we think that's probably what will solve and help our people at the end of the day. A lot of people don't know how to properly set up a small business because they never had the experience. For example, Mr. E. Mr. Chef E Catering, if I'm getting the name correct, they're a small business within our network. They went through 3 trial and errors for their small business, and it took the 4th time for them to launch it correctly. And they
That
worked
takes perseverance.
right, exactly. And a lot of people don't get to that point. So if you imagine how hard it was just for them, imagine that in housing, imagine that in schooling, teaching, imagine that in property owning. Like it's a spectrum, and I think we have to properly analyze the effects, and not more so, I'm sorry, the causes, not really the effects of where we're at today. And that's how you'll start to get the answers and dive into the problems.
Yes, and I'll add that, to that point, I believe it's Candy Burris who said that if she was able to either get money in the beginning of her career or some advice, that she would take the advice, because she said that that is what would be most beneficial to first generation millionaires, if they spent so much time in trial and error to get there. And, some either don't have the time, aren't able to, or just don't have the know-how or resources to be able to see that through. I mean, a 4th try in launching a small business, a lot of people aren't going to make it past the second one.
Right, definitely. And then like another thing was Earth Remedies, like we said with the grocery pop-ups and the farmer pop-ups, we attend them in Austin, Garfield Park, Humboldt Park, and we connect with the small businesses and we add them to our network in regards to letting them know
Okay.
the different resources, the different fundings, the different grants that are available that they might not have ever received. One thing that we realized was a lot of small businesses and a lot of community leaders, because community leaders are small businesses, they don't know what's available. And I think that just goes to everything within the Black community. We're starved of resources, we're starved of development. So how do you know what to do better or where to do better if you don't know what's available? I know Mercedes can speak on that in regards to housing. She just purchased a house and she was in so many different programs,
Congratulations.
and she can speak on that more, but she was in so many different programs where it's so many different financial options for support available,
Mm-hmm.
but you would not know. Like if you're a first time home buyer, I think you get financial assistance, right, Mercedes?
If you fall within particular
Right.
means, but just to get access to those grants. I mean,
To know that they exist.
prior to the pandemic, my mother would say, before you buy the house, go to the city, they have money, and you'll call them, and they're like, no, we don't. And then they test, and they're like, yes, they do. It's like, wait, where is this money? And to comment on what Charles said.
And usually, if you're going to the city, what she left out is that you will have to ask 3 different people before you get the correct answer.
Like, you should have a registry of what's available, if anything else. To comment on what Charles said about the small businesses, one thing we're trying to implement is allowing the utilization of vacant lots. Trailer trains are being used as pop-up spaces. You may have seen it with Bronzeville Incubator Center. They have a retail.
I forgot I have.
they have retail pop-up spaces. Where a person can rent out a trailer for a few months and
That's
allow
amazing.
themselves to build and understand the trajectory of a small business, and to build your annual report without having to commit to a venue that may not be generating enough revenue is key.
Right.
Families to focus on the small businesses, to focus on the products, their revenue, their marketing, and then when they can collaborate with a permanent venue, let it be affordable and let them understand what it takes to build that business and then sustain the business. In regards to the housing process, yes, we really want to help encourage our community to invest on Westside of Chicago. I purchased my home in Garfield Park, and I want to purchase more in Garfield Park, especially if gentrification is on the rise. Is like, let us stand our ground as much as possible and rent out crazily to them if that's what it takes. And to understand the resources are not readily available. However, there's funding there. It kind of bothers me. We are trying to work with Invest Southwest and the aldermen to create more programs. So these small businesses and these small and the families that rent in these neighborhoods can go through programs. So after they learn the home buying steps, they receive a grant. They've been in the neighborhood for 20, 30 years. Why not give residents, and not only give them money to purchase the building, because as you said, if you miss a few payments in 30 years, it's no longer yours. And also, if you miss your property tax, guess what? It's no longer yours. So having the families understand what it takes, the options out there, allow for us to build a stronger community, whether it's for small businesses, for home ownership, or continuing education, because university is not always the goal.
Right.
I was fortunate enough to receive a full ride scholarship. However, I did not network. I had the degree. However, I didn't network. Now I am going back to DePaul to continue my master's in information technology. Okay. However, it's like not many people have this privilege of have this opportunity, in bringing the Black community back into trade is key. Not having them spend so much money in debt to keep up with the next person, but investing within themselves so they can properly invest in their own infrastructure and in their community. I think that's key. And it's going to be a conversation to be had, but it's what we're working towards, and creating enough research behind it. We have 2 community surveys going out, one for small businesses and one for community members. And we're asking them, what do you need? What do you want? What is your property tax looking like?
That's funny. I suggested that to my city government. They can't manage to do that because they don't know what we want around here. No, but go ahead.
And to add to the so with that survey that we're doing, one thing that I've learned last year, and a lot of people don't really realize, is there's something called a TIF program within Chicago. And that TIF program is a tax incentive funding program where, based off the amount of properties, it's an access tax level that after the tax dollars, whatever the city is doing with that tax dollar within each zone is funding the community. For example, in Garfield Park has 11% of the empty lots that Mercedes mentioned alone in the community, because
Okay.
instead of developing that community, they're just knocking down these buildings, which just destroys the value of the actual community. And the taxpayer dollars is lessened versus up north downtown. I worked in the Lincoln
Oh, I hadn't
Yard.
thought about that.
Yeah,
As far as how TIFs work, that comparison that takes down the value, community value as a whole.
exactly.
And not to interrupt, but the investment within the neighboring schools, property
Oh
tax,
yeah.
the funding for these small schools. So if you're having vacant lots scattered all throughout the west side and not allowing any development on the lots, it will impact the community on a multitude of levels.
And the other thing is that you were talking about pop-ups, and to even do pop-up gardening. I've seen several, different iterations of pop-ups, in DC, to include tennis courts, and whatnot. And you could have a farm and, a small farm garden, leave it for a year, 6 months, and then that be the end of it, just for the sake of starting. And as an elected official, to just allow those properties to sit there, those vacant lots. We're not encouraging squatting, but you can do something with this. And I forgot, I think that the city of Chicago took out something like 3/4 of their, and I think that maybe 3/4 of what has been raised recently was city owned or something ridiculous. It's been an incredible a number of homes. I don't know, 800 or so that's been knocked down recently. I'm pretty sure I'm
Yeah.
off.
What's crazy is the city of Chicago has so many empty lots, they don't even have them all on file. Like seriously, like they
Which means
cannot
that
recall.
and they have to maintain them. And so if they're, you're not maintaining these lots, you're allowing, overgrown grass. That's creating blight. That's contributing to crime. Um, I had the number as far as the number of homeless people that were in the city. 50,000, I believe. It's 50 or 70. Um, to prioritize, you could be working on revitalizing some of those homes, because at the end of the day, both getting those people off of the street and dealing with the blight that's what's going to take or help take down the crime that is talked about around the clock.
Right.
you
Yeah, and
know.
I think a city in Texas, if I recall, they started making, and the empty lots that they had, or it might have been LA and California. They made little house pods available
LA
for
did
those,
that.
right, for those facing homelessness. I'm sorry,
Hmm.
and that's just so impactful. We work with a small business called Free Hot Meals, and throughout the entire winter, he was paying for hotels. It was COVID, so
Oh
these
wow.
hotels are already empty. So he was working with the hotels and housing these people facing homelessness. Because if they were, like I said, we just had a cold spell, like an Arctic blast.
Yeah.
And he was going throughout the city of Chicago. He had a GoFundMe that raised over $200,000, and it put the city on blast. And next thing you know, the city started to have initiatives to help the homeless. So it
I
takes
see.
the community to build that call to action, and then the city wants to act as if they always had it.
And I feel like the city needs to bring those grassroots organizations to the table.
Yes.
Because those grassroots organizations will continue to make sure that program run efficiently and effectively,
Right.
rather than, hey, here's a promotion, we're doing this, and just let it fall by the wayside. It's very tragic to see how the city is moving about what's happening on the west side of Chicago. The mayor, she's in limbo, understanding the struggles of the community, but also not trying to play the part that she said she would play, even with the educators. The educators are asking her for more resources, and she's funding the Chicago Police Department instead. It's
Hmm.
very it's very disheartening to see where the funding is going, especially after the fiscal budget rolls out again. So
Yeah, 300 mil went to CPD again after they had a fully funded year, and
Huh.
this was after COVID, which
yeah,
was
and it was the percentage of what was increased and decreased by CPS and CPD. CPD increased by a few percent and CPS decreased by a few percent. So seeing how the teachers are asking for more funding and at the same time losing it. Um,
Now, for the school system, you have it listed that you do or do tutoring for 3rd to 12th grade, and so the one of the previous school heads of the school board, I'm not sure if it's the immediate last one, but I know that there was someone who was indicted, I believe, that was doing 7 or so years in prison, and I wanted to juxtapose that with, I believe that Chicago schools, I think it was Stanford, that said that they were now being a bit of a model for how a school system is to turn itself around. And I remember reading this. I had asked an activist friend or two in the city what their opinion was. And I said, I just felt that looking at the outcomes and, sort of how certain communities are, it doesn't seem that that quite matches um, that people would be wanting to model themselves after the city, especially considering the fact that I think that same head of the school board came from Ohio, and she was fudging numbers there, at least
right.
on attendance. So
Yeah.
it wouldn't surprise me to be doing the same thing as far as test scores, possibly.
Yes. That's actually what was happening. With CPS, they had a program called No Child Left Behind. And now, from my knowledge, I was throughout my entire CPS career, and that literally left a lot of kids behind because the teachers in the schools were either put on probation if the students did not have a certain levels of attendance, didn't have
Right.
as high test scores. So the teachers were incentivized to raise test scores or make tests easier. I remember one
Okay.
time, I won't say the grade or the teacher, but they were literally giving us answers pre-test because they knew a lot of the kids were going to fail. But unfortunately, that just sets them back when they get into high school, when they get into college.
Yeah. And just comparatively, as I said, looking at that, it didn't make sense. Just comparing the community to what I'm hearing about the school system, I said this is happening too quickly. I think that she also got into trouble for giving school buildings to charter schools, sort of having these pretend community meetings. We're thinking of getting rid of these school buildings. We're going to talk to you about it, and already having a deal set to, give it to this other school system. But I went through this in DC. I think the worst high school in the city suddenly made the news for 100% graduation. And my immediate response was, someone's going to jail for that. Because there's no way that
yeah.
this is legal or it happened. And of course, well, no one went to jail, but I was
Yeah.
right.
I mean, I do recall as well the schools emphasizing enrollment for the first day because I believe funding was heavily dependent on the
Hmm.
number of students that walked in the door. And you want to ask about the retention rate of the number of students that are actually staying in those
Oh,
classrooms.
yeah, I never hear about that. It's always the first day.
The first and the last. Um,
Yeah,
and not how
Yeah.
many made it from the first day.
right, the beginning to the end.
Uh, yeah, and our tutoring platform, we are very integrated with the youth, with the scholars, as we call them, their parents, and we're building a relationship with their teachers. A lot of times, the parents may not know the material, and they
Hmm.
may feel as if there's a divide, whether it's a digital divide or an academic divide with what this child is learning, how the teacher is delivering it, and what they can contribute. So with Remedies, we come there and we analyze just the child's ability to work. This CPS system is not very dynamic. It's not it does not allow for children with different learning abilities to
I
thrive.
see.
So we really try to see what do the child learn best in and how can we help. And some youth, they're more hands-on. Some youth, they just want to be checked on and help guided. And others want activities heavily implemented in their routine. And we're trying to build that relationship. This upcoming weekend, we're taking our scholars to free rock climbing. The city of
Oh wow.
they drop the ball on field trips. They drop the ball on the child's mental wellness. And we just wanted to check in with our youth. And we worked with First Ascent. They also wanted their internal space in Humboldt Park to reflect the neighborhood and to have an institution, a workout facility in the hood, but do not reflect what the hood looks like
Hmm.
is concerning.
Oh
And
yeah.
we're allowing Earth Remedies to take up space and to bring our youth and their parents into the facility and even give them either free programming for the summer or allowing uh, parents to have a discount for group sessions because we need
Okay.
it affordable and not just a one-time thing. We need to allow families um, with lower income to be able to have access to these resources and incorporating activity, incorporating fun, um, energy with the youth. We really seen has created that relationship where one of our youth, we helped her for 4 years when she was a freshman, and now she received her high school diploma. And while she received that diploma, she also gained college credits for her
Oh
social.
nice.
And now she's back as an intern. So at first she was our
Oh, that's very
senior,
good.
and now she's interning for us. And just to see her rise, her family is so excited for her development. And it's a group effort. A lot of parents may not have that time to give to
Right.
a child. However, the community can step in and the parents can root on the side and come back and just see the growth from their child. And that's a
Right.
relationship built on all sides. So we really do want the community to be that powerhouse, to be that power player, and to continue to give to their neighbors. And we're currently working with Al Raby to bring free tutoring to their students. And our goal
Okay.
is to go to the Garfield Park Conservatory and ask them, can they offer up free space so Earth Remedies tutors can mentor inside this greenhouse that the Westside youth do not enter into.
I
So
see.
we're trying to make these spaces accessible and allow for families to,
And sometimes it's to destigmatize
yeah,
because, I mean, honestly, a lot of Black kids and growing up in some of these areas just don't think that's where they're supposed to be going. And often when these community centers sometimes are built, I have watched elected officials sell them that this is for you. And then there's, a big membership fee,
yeah,
that happens to be for the new homes across the street. Um, so no, that's important just to be able to include these children into spaces that they otherwise would likely not be a part of or even seek to be a part of.
yeah. And then another thing, we're trying to build relationships with the small businesses and the scholars who are in 11th, 12th grade. And many of them want to be entrepreneurs, but they look downtown and
Yeah.
they're not looking at the mom and dad shops that are thriving and popping up across their neighborhood. And to have these scholars invest in their neighborhood, whether it's with an internship, a volunteer
Yeah.
position, a part-time position, it allows for them to clean up their neighborhood, invest in their neighborhood, and also learn critical skills because once they get into the work field, they're asking for work experience. And they already have,
Right.
when they were 14, 15, 16,
Yeah.
volunteering and then had an internship. And now they're 19 with a part time job, ready to take it to the next level. We want to strengthen that relationship. And the community is seeing that. And we're building a relationship with our family of our network of families and our network of small businesses. And it'll take time to continue to strengthen that relationship and
Hmm.
build that network. But with relationships like this, it creates Earth Remedies as a friendly face and a trustworthy entity. So thank you.
You're welcome. I loved reading about you all's story. Before I contacted you all, I said, this is perfect. Hope I get a response. It's very much appreciated. Let us know how you can be supported for those who are interested.
Yes, so we have a Juneteenth resource week, and we're plugging our small community to Black and Brown businesses. Juneteenth is our day of liberation, and we're trying to
Okay.
split the Black dollar. We have a Free Your Mind Soulful Sunday with yoga meditation. If you want to offer a service, connect with us. It will be virtually streamed with limited in-person interaction. We have a Money
Nice.
Management Monday, a Trade Up Tuesday, a Wellness Wednesday. We have an Art for the Heart Thursday's Tempo Fashion Show for Friday, and then a Dream
Nice.
celebration. It's a week long of resources, and we're connecting field experts to the community, and we're helping to circulate the Black dollar as well as increase clientele or develop an apprenticeship. And we also have tutoring. We call it impact learning, where we're
Okay.
trying to impact the learning of our neighborhood youth. And we also have our business network that come out to collaborate with us. Some businesses offer up free space for our youth. Other businesses, they offer up free uh, services such as haircuts and braiding styles. So there's a
Nice.
variety of ways for individuals to get connected. We're looking for field experts, whether you're in financial literacy, career readiness,
That's important.
strategies. We want to help connect the community to you as well as strengthen the community with the knowledge that you have to share.
Right.
So whenever I hear about Chicago, I always make sure that I have a list of people to call off and name to finish that conversation. This is what about Chicago, okay? For those who are listening, and let us know how to find you online.
Yes, you can find us on on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn at Earth's Remedies. It's EARTH apostrophe S Remedies, REMEDIES. And if you go on Instagram or Twitter, it's Earth's underscore Remedies. Our website is still under development. We're trying to allow families to log in to track
Oh,
their
nice.
Right.
their record and to track their progress. So if you're also a developer, I'm a database developer, but we need a website developer. We are trying to build a platform for the community, whether they can walk into our facilities or tap into us online, because we're plugging them to you.
Right.
That's very good. Listen, just sidebar before we go, and I want you to hang around for just a second. I had retired my web design days a couple of years ago. I got a team, a web management team, to do mine. I think I had some tech issues, and I said, "That's it. I wash my hands of it. Never again." So I completely understand.
It's
All right.
tough.
Thank you both, and also for those who want to follow me who don't already. JaVonni Brustow, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, just about wherever else. And I will talk to you all again soon.